Is Shedeur Sanders already the Cleveland Browns' biggest gamble before his career has even started? That's the question fans are asking after a shocking twist at practice sent the rookie quarterback straight to the sidelines, and the Browns' quarterback plans spiraling into uncertainty. What looked like a promising preseason debut suddenly turned into a pressure test for the entire franchise. And it all started with one muscle, the oblique. Now, on paper, a strained oblique might not sound like the kind of headline that flips a team's season. To the casual fan, it might even feel minor, just a side tweak, right? But in football, details are everything. And in the NFL, every tiny muscle matters, especially when you're the guy throwing the football. This wasn't just another routine camp injury. This was the exact kind of moment that doesn't just test a rookie's durability, it tests the patience, the priorities, and even the long-term vision of an entire organization. Remember, this is the same rookie who just days earlier was lighting up headlines with his preseason debut. Sanders had shown poise, accuracy, and flashes of the very talent that made people believe he could be more than just a fourth-string name on a crowded depth chart. Fans saw it, analysts saw it, and even within the Browns' locker room, players felt the difference when the ball came out of his hand. For once, there was a buzz, a real sense that maybe, just maybe, the Browns had found something fresh in a quarterback room that has too often felt like a revolving door. But then came the moment that changed the conversation. Sanders grabbed his side, shut it down, and walked off. And when he walked off, the story didn't stop, it started. Because in the NFL, when a rookie with hype suddenly gets sidelined, the ripple effect goes far beyond his own rehab. It exposes the team's entire strategy. Who steps up now? How do the Browns split snaps in camp? What message does it send about where Sanders really stands in the pecking order? These aren't small questions, they're the kind of questions that shape depth charts, locker room dynamics, and even careers. And here's the part that makes this story so captivating. It's happening in real time. While fans scroll social media for updates, the Browns coaching staff is making decisions behind closed doors that could define how the season starts and how the future unfolds. Do they rush Sanders back to capitalize on his momentum, or do they play it safe and risk killing the buzz before it ever had a chance to grow? Do they prioritize the steady hand of veterans like Joe Flacco, or do they lean into the unknown with a rookie who just proved he could command an NFL offense if only his body would let him? It's a fascinating puzzle because every option comes with stakes. Push him too soon, and you risk damaging not only his oblique, but also his mechanics and confidence. Slow play him, and you risk losing the spark that got fans believing in the first place. And all of this pressure is playing out against the backdrop of a city that has been desperate for a quarterback who can finally change the narrative. So, what does Shedeur Sanders' oblique strain really mean for the Browns? It means this preseason injury is about way more than a muscle. It's about momentum, opportunity, and the razor-thin line between potential and missed chances. It's about whether Cleveland has the discipline to protect its future or the desperation to gamble on its present. And as we dive deeper, you'll see why this single injury might end up telling us more about the Browns' identity than any touchdown pass thrown in August. Because the clock isn't ticking against Shedeur Sanders, it's ticking for the Browns to prove they finally know how to handle one of the most valuable assets in football, a young quarterback with real promise. If you zoom out from Shedeur Sanders' injury, the real chaos isn't just in his core, it's in Cleveland's quarterback room. Because here's the truth, the Browns' QB depth chart is less of a ladder and more of a crowded traffic jam, with every car stalling at the worst possible time. And Sanders' sudden injury only poured gasoline on the pileup. At the top sits Joe Flacco, the veteran who seems to exist in every NFL quarterback room like a safety blanket. Flacco is steady, experienced, and reliable in the way a used pickup truck is reliable. He'll get you from point A to point B, but nobody's buying tickets just to see him drive. He's the definition of safe, which is why coaches love him and fans are lukewarm about him. Then there's Kenny Pickett, who was supposed to be another piece of Cleveland's insurance plan. Except there's a catch, he's been limited with a nagging hamstring issue, and hamstrings don't play favorites. They flare up, they linger, and they can drag on longer than any team wants to admit. That's strike two in the quarterback room. Next, enter fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel. Young, intriguing, but also banged up. He's been nursing his own dings, which means the Browns can't even lean on their developmental options without crossing their fingers. Gabriel has upside, sure, but he's also raw. If Sanders was supposed to be the rookie surprise, Gabriel was the backup plan. Now both rookies are either injured or unavailable. Finally, you have Tyler Huntley, a serviceable backup who's been waiting for his chance to prove he belongs in the rotation. Huntley can step in, but he isn't the kind of name that inspires confidence for fans who just watched Sanders light up a preseason game. If anything, Huntley feels like a stopgap, a placeholder, until someone more exciting is ready. So, let's take stock. Flacco is steady but uninspiring. Pickett is hurt. Gabriel is questionable. Huntley is a backup trying to make the most of scraps. And Sanders, the one rookie who gave Cleveland fans a reason to lean forward in their seats, is suddenly sidelined by an oblique strain. It's not just a depth chart. It's a game of musical chairs where the music stopped, and nobody's sure who's supposed to sit down first. This is where the ripple effect of Sanders' injury becomes crystal clear. In the NFL, quarterback rooms aren't just about who takes the snaps, they're about competition, momentum, and confidence. Every practice rep is currency. Every preseason drive is an audition. And when one guy goes down, it's not just his reps that disappear, it's an entire domino effect of who gets more chances, who gets sidelined, and who earns trust with coaches and teammates. Think about the psychology here. If Dillon Gabriel suddenly gets the start against the Eagles and plays well, that gives the staff an excuse to lean on him longer. Continuity becomes leverage. Coaches love consistency, and if Gabriel looks stable, they can justify slowing down Sanders' return under the banner of health first. That's not malicious, it's just how the NFL machine works. Or maybe Huntley takes most of the work and looks solid. In that case, the staff can slow roll both rookies, letting Flacco anchor the start of the season while they let Sanders and Gabriel develop. Again, it sounds cautious, but in reality, it means Sanders' momentum gets buried under veteran safety and rookie politics. And here's the kicker. Players in the locker room notice these things. Receivers remember who threw the ball on time. Offensive linemen remember who ran the huddle with authority. If Sanders isn't out there, someone else is taking those reps and building that chemistry. In the NFL, chemistry is currency. If Sanders misses too much time, that chemistry shifts to someone else. And once it shifts, it's hard to get back. That's why the depth chart chaos isn't just a funny subplot, it's the heart of the story. Sanders' injury doesn't just test his body. It tests his ability to hold onto the buzz he created, the chemistry he built, and the trust he started earning. Every day he sits, someone else gets the spotlight. Every rep he misses, another quarterback cements themselves a little deeper into the plan. And this is the razor's edge. Cleveland is walking. Do they stick with the safe veteran hand in Flacco? Do they gamble on Gabriel? Do they ride Huntley as the emergency fix? Or do they bet on Sanders, even if his body needs time? It's a depth chart in disarray, and the injury just made the decision 10 times harder. Because now, the Browns don't just need to answer who's healthy enough to play, they need to answer something even bigger. Who do we really believe in? If there's one thing every football fan knows, it's that momentum can change everything. For a young quarterback fighting for recognition, a single strong performance can completely rewrite the narrative around his career. And that's exactly what happened when Dorian Thompson-Robinson stepped onto the field against the Carolina Panthers. Heading into that matchup, expectations were mixed. Some fans doubted if he was ready for the speed and complexity of the NFL. Others believed he just needed a chance to prove himself. What nobody anticipated, however, was how quickly he would silence those doubts with his poise, energy, and command of the offense. From the very first series, DTR looked like he belonged. He didn't play like a rookie, still learning the ropes. He played like a quarterback who understood the moment and wasn't going to waste it. His throws had zip, his reads were sharper than what we'd seen before, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew this was his shot to make a statement. What stood out most wasn't just the completions or the yards he gained, it was the energy he injected into the team. Football isn't just about X's and O's. It's about momentum, about confidence spreading through the huddle, about teammates believing they can execute because the guy under center is calm and composed. And against the Panthers, Thompson-Robinson became that spark. The offense began Clyde's reset. Finally, there's the emotional dilemma. Injuries don't just test the body, they test relationships. How much faith do the Browns have in their quarterback to fight through this? How much faith does the quarterback have in the organization to protect him rather than push him too hard? Trust, or the lack of it, can define a season more than any play call. The Browns' dilemma isn't just about who takes the first snap in September. It's about whether this team can finally break free from its past patterns and handle adversity with maturity. The answer will reveal whether Cleveland is truly ready to compete for more than just a playoff spot or whether fans are in for another roller coaster of what could have been. When fans hear about an injury, the first thought is usually the surface-level effect. He's hurt, so he can't play. But in reality, especially in the NFL, the ripple effects run far deeper. When it comes to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, and his recent setback with the oblique strain, what's really at stake goes far beyond just one young quarterback missing some practice reps. It touches on the team's immediate prospects, its long-term planning, its locker room chemistry, and the very identity of the Cleveland Browns in a season that was supposed to define a new era. Let's start with DTR himself. For a rookie quarterback, every rep is gold. These aren't just throws in practice or preseason snaps, they are opportunities to learn timing, build chemistry with receivers, and adjust to the speed of the NFL. Losing time means losing momentum, and momentum is one of the most precious commodities in the league. Once it slips, it's incredibly hard to get back. So for DTR, the injury isn't just about physical pain, it's about stunted development. The risk is that by the time he gets healthy, the quarterback competition might have shifted dramatically, and his chance to solidify a role could be gone. From the Browns' perspective, the stakes are even more layered. This team is built on defense and a strong running game, but everyone knows that in today's NFL, you can't win consistently without competent quarterback play. The Browns invested heavily in Deshaun Watson, but Watson's own ups and downs mean the team can't afford to ignore the rest of its depth chart. A promising rookie like DTR is valuable insurance and potentially much more, but an injury like this clouds the picture. Suddenly, the Browns are left asking uncomfortable questions. Can we trust him to stay healthy? Can he be ready when we need him most? And then there's the locker room. Players notice everything. When a young quarterback steps in and makes plays, like DTR did against the Panthers, teammates start to rally. They begin to believe. That belief can shift the culture, even if the player isn't the starter yet. But when that same player is sidelined by injury, the vibe changes. The spark dims a little. The team starts looking elsewhere for leadership. If that spark doesn't reignite quickly, it can be hard to recapture. The coaching staff, too, is walking a tightrope. Kevin Stefanski and his team are tasked with making win-now decisions while also planning for the future. An injury to a young QB complicates both missions. If they push him too hard, they risk worsening the injury and derailing his development entirely. If they play it too safe, they might miss out on the momentum he built and the potential boost he could give the team in the short term. It's a delicate balancing act, and one misstep could have consequences that stretch beyond this season. But perhaps the biggest thing at stake is the Browns' broader narrative. This is a franchise that has been searching for stability at quarterback for decades. Every time a young, promising player shows flashes of potential, the fanbase gets a little more hopeful. And every time that story ends with disappointment, whether from poor play, bad luck, or injury, it adds to the cycle of frustration. With DTR, there was a real sense that maybe, just maybe, the Browns had found a gem. This injury doesn't erase that hope, but it does delay it, and delays in the NFL can feel like dead ends. Ultimately, what's at stake here is more than one player or one injury. It's about belief. Belief in a player, belief in a team, belief in a direction. If DTR can bounce back quickly, the Browns can keep that belief alive, and perhaps even strengthen it. But if the injury lingers, if momentum is lost, the Browns could find themselves once again staring at the same old story. Potential wasted, opportunities missed, and a season that feels just a little less promising than it did before. And in the NFL, where windows of opportunity open and close in the blink of an eye, that's the real danger. Not just losing a game or a few practice reps, but losing the belief that this team is on the verge of something special. That belief is fragile, and right now, it's hanging in the balance. When a young quarterback like Dorian Thompson-Robinson finds himself battling both the uncertainty of an injury and the unforgiving structure of an NFL depth chart, the path forward rarely looks linear. Instead, it branches out into several possibilities, some that inspire hope, others that require caution, and a few that serve as stark warnings of what can go wrong. To truly grasp what's at stake, it's worth breaking down three major scenarios: the optimistic outcome, the realistic one, and the avoidable disaster. In the best-case scenario, Thompson-Robinson's oblique strain heals quicker than expected. Oblique injuries can be stubborn, but with the right rehabilitation plan, daily monitoring, and a bit of luck, it's possible for a young, resilient athlete to return within a few weeks. If that happens, he could re-enter practices just in time to regain his rhythm, reminding coaches why he looked so sharp against the Carolina Panthers. The optimism here doesn't just come from physical recovery. A quick turnaround would send a message. DTR has the toughness and determination that NFL teams crave. It would show that even when adversity struck, he didn't let it derail his progress. He would slot back into preseason reps with enough time to continue proving himself, perhaps even reclaiming a spot higher on the depth chart. Fans would latch onto this narrative quickly. The rookie fighter, battling through an injury, makes a strong comeback. It's the kind of storyline that energizes a locker room and builds early career momentum. For the Browns, it would be a relief, as it preserves their investment in a developing quarterback who has already shown flashes of poise and playmaking ability. In this scenario, the oblique strain becomes little more than a bump in the road. The more likely outcome is less glamorous, but equally important to acknowledge. Oblique strains aren't catastrophic, but they're also not something that can be rushed. Realistically, DTR may miss significant practice time, and depending on the severity, one or more preseason games. In the NFL, where competition for roster spots is fierce and every rep matters, that absence could have ripple effects. By the time Thompson Robinson is healthy enough to fully participate, the Browns' coaching staff may have already shifted their focus toward preparing the starters and cementing backup roles. In that environment, DTR could find himself with fewer opportunities to prove his readiness. Instead of being seen as an immediate contributor, he might be slotted more firmly as a developmental project, someone the team keeps around but doesn't plan to rely on this season. That doesn't mean the story ends there. Plenty of quarterbacks have had to wait their turn, biding time until opportunity knocks again. The realistic path may involve patience. Thompson Robinson focuses on learning the system, improving his mental game, and staying ready for when his name is called. It's not flashy, and it won't grab headlines, but it sets the foundation for long-term success. The darkest possibility, the one both DTR and the Browns need to avoid at all costs, is pushing too hard, too soon. If he rushes back before the oblique is fully healed, the risk of aggravating the injury skyrockets. And unlike some other ailments, an oblique re-injury can linger for months, stealing away not just this preseason, but potentially an entire developmental year. This scenario isn't just about health, it's about perception. If Thompson Robinson tries to play through the pain and struggles visibly, coaches may begin to question his reliability. Opposing defenses at the NFL level will find any weakness, and a quarterback hesitant to rotate his body fully could see his throws lose velocity or accuracy. Those shortcomings, combined with the optics of an injury setback, could unfairly shape his reputation before he's truly had a chance to define it himself. The avoidable scenario is essentially a cautionary tale. A promising young quarterback loses valuable time, sets back his development, and finds himself slipping further down the depth chart, not because of a lack of talent, but because of mismanaged recovery. Each scenario highlights the razor-thin margins young NFL players live on. The optimistic path can launch DTR into an inspiring underdog story. The realistic one emphasizes patience and resilience in the long haul. And the avoidable disaster serves as a warning of how quickly momentum can vanish if health isn't prioritized. For the Browns, the takeaway is clear. They must handle Thompson Robinson carefully. For DTR, the lesson is even sharper. His career isn't defined by this injury, but how he responds to it could shape everything that comes next. When analyzing this situation with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the Cleveland Browns, it's tempting to get caught up in the short-term drama. The injury itself, the ripple effects on the depth chart, and the immediate concerns about who's going to start next week. But if